What's up? Today I'm going to do a little how I shot this. We're going to break down this photo right here. I'm going to show you kind of what my settings were, what my setup was, what I did leading up to this picture to prepare for it, and just all the way to the finished product. So let's begin by saying I shot this with my Canon R5 paired up with a 28-70 RF 2.0 lens. That thing is a beast. If you shot with that lens, it's very large and in charge. It's a heavy lens, but it's got a beautiful look. Me being someone that's an absolute addicted person to primes, so for years and years I shot strictly primes. I didn't want anything to do with telephoto lenses. When I finally gave in and tried that 28-70, which I heard so much about for weddings, it has been incredible. Still, I think the 50 RF 1.2 is a superior portrait lens. However, the 2.0 28-70 is just an absolute machine. It gets the job done. It's an incredibly fast focus lens. It's got a beautiful, gorgeous drop off when you're shooting at 2.0, and it's extremely versatile. Just the fact that you can go from really wide to tight, or just to a portrait length, just by twisting. It's for wedding photographers, that split second moment really does make a difference. So let's get into this one. This one, as you can see here on the screen, 28-70. I shot it at 64 millimeters. So I find myself always within that 50 to 60 range. Even when I'm using this lens, I find that 50 still, like the look of the 50 is very attractive to my brain, I guess. So when I'm setting and dialing my lens, that focal length, it usually lands between 50 and 60. Here it's at 64 millimeters. That's what I had it at. And if you look, I had it at 2.8. So reason being for the 2.8, I didn't want to have it all the way down at 2.0. There's a couple of things that were going through my mind. First, I wanted to be able to focus really well on the couple. There was a lot of motion. They're running. It's very dark. There's a lot of bubbles in the way that you might miss focus on. So I just really wanted to make sure that we landed the focus on the couple. Therefore, 2.0 was a little more forgiving than shooting at 2.0. However, I didn't want it to be so dark that you would lose some of the ambient light. Hence why you see the ISO being up at 1250. So 1250 ISO. That's to make up for being a little higher in aperture and to really capture a little bit of the ambient light. So like the tent right here. So instead of being a absolute black space, I wanted a little bit of a hint of the tent in the back there. So once again, yeah, I just, I could have depended 100% on my lights, but I didn't want to lose some of the people that were in the shadows, like people in the background and stuff. I didn't want it to be pitch black. I wanted some of the ambient light, which there was very limited amount. Keep in mind, it was maybe like one string light, but mainly for backdrop, just depth purposes. I didn't want it to be like anything that my lights didn't touch, just pure blackness. So that's what I did. This two light setup. I had one light on camera, and then I had another light on a stand. So the light on camera was the Godox V1 with a mag sphere on it. So that's a magnet mod diffuser. It's the silicone kind of sphere that you pop on there. I love mag mod. It's great accessories. I think that they're amazing. So I had that on there. The light was not directly at them. It was at a 45-degree angle up, which allowed for a little bit of that fall off to go onto them. So a little less harsh and less direct of a light. Mag Sphere is great for that, just to make the light source feel a little larger. And then I had another light in the back. You cannot see it, so I did that on purpose. I said there was kind of like a little grassy knoll drop off in the back there. I set up my stand as high as it could go while still staying below the last person, like the height of the last person. I didn't want my flash to just have that like beam, that light beam showing in the picture. I wanted it to be more behind and hidden, but I still wanted it high enough that it would hit the people in the front here for a little hair light. So if you look, that the nice bright rim light there, boom, the same here and here and here. You see it on these people as well. I wanted it high enough that it would sneak around this little crew back there. They would come out this way and that way, and therefore adding a little separation from the background. I think that was that was what I was aiming for, and I think it executed perfectly. A lot of the setups I actually talk about in a new Flash course that I just made live last week. I think that it's a very simple setup, and my approach, it literally took me maybe like, I want to say 1 minute to set up the stand and to run over and mess with my settings, do a test shot, and in 2 minutes I was ready to shoot it. So 1 minute for setup, 2 minutes for like, okay, I'm ready to shoot, let's do this. And that's following the process. That's very simple. It's a process that I talk in depth about in that Flash course, which I'll link below for you guys. So you can check that out if you're interested in, but I break that process very detailed. It's a very simple process and approach that I have for using Flash, so that you can, in rush moments like this where the DJ's like, we're gonna do an exit, and everybody's lined up and it's always chaotic. You always want to be ready quicker than you should be, or that you think you can be, because the couple is like ready to get out of there. They're in the back of the line. They can hear go or stop or no or go. They don't know the difference, so they're just gonna go. So you better be ready as fast as you can, or have someone designated to hold them back. So anyways, that's what we did. I set up those two lights, did a quick test shot, and I think it came out great. It came out great. My backlight was a little bit brighter than my key light, which is the one on camera. I wanted that a specific way because I didn't want the backlight to really brighten everything up. I did want a little bit of that stream that you see here, but if you notice, there's nothing blown out, so the grass isn't blown out, which therefore would distract from this. If it was too bright, it would have a nice hair light effect, but then everywhere it hit, so like here or like the grass or here, it would be like a little overexposed, therefore creating hot spots and distractions from my bright spot, which is this right here. I had the key light obviously a little bit brighter than the backlight, as I stated previously, and that's just to create more of a focus on the couple and nothing else. This is a straight out of camera photo right here, no edits, nothing, just raw file, and this is the edited final product right there. So you can see I didn't do much editing to kind of like bring back. That's just the lighting is as it was. I didn't do any brushes or any gradient filters or anything like that to redirect or correct from my light. This is just straight out of camera. The lighting wise, that the coloring and details a little bit obviously edited, but here I'll do a reset. That's a full resetted version of it, and that's the final product. Reset, right? So you can see what it looked like straight out of camera. Cool. So that was that's how we got this photo. Basically, they started running. I kept shooting. I didn't do eye tracking in this situation. I just did spot focus, followed them along. Boom, boom, boom. When they stopped for a kiss, we were all like, kiss, kiss, stop right there, kiss. And they did a big dip. Refocus once they were stopped, made sure that I wasn't pulling focus on a bubble or anything, and snapped a couple more. So there's a cool sequence of them running towards the camera for that, but this was kind of like the it shot. This is the one that really everybody wants. The other cool thing about the backlight that people underestimate is the ability to make all of these bubbles pop. So if I didn't have a backlight, you would see these bubbles, these little orbs here on the front would show up, but those all the way up top here, that depth that you see here in I'll take a moment to load, but that depth that you see, all these little dots wouldn't show, because that depends on the light hitting them, and the light from my camera wouldn't have reached that far back to brighten them up. So the light that was back there was really lighting up all those background bubbles, therefore adding a lot more depth to it, making it a little more textured and interesting. So that was really neat right there. I that's another reason why when we do bubbles, I use a backlight. Sometimes if they're doing like sparklers, maybe I'll just do a very low key backlight, meaning like low power, just for a little separation of the people. But mostly just one on camera is nice. Once again, if you want to learn more about my approach on how I set up my flash, that flash course really breaks it down. But this is the gist of this photo, was just set up. First thing was tell people where to line up. I set up my light on the stand. I run up to the front. Boom, I find the focal length that I want. I take that photo, make sure my flash is dialed in, couple test shots, couple adjustments, and in 2 minutes you're ready to go. You give them thumbs up, they run, you focus on them while they're going, and this was a moment that we got. This is a banger that they were really happy about. So I hope this video was helpful. If you're interested in the flash course, the link is below. Check it out, and I'll be back with more how I shot this.